Ekes. Woo! Done. Woo!
Thanks, Chad, and thank you for getting my name right.
That's right.
Makes me feel really good.
He's the only one.
Okay, so let's start my presentation out with a question for you. If I could just get a quick showing of hands, who all here has either lost their job or knows somebody who has lost their job due to automation? Basically been automated out of the job. Okay? All right, there's a few hands that went up. It doesn't surprise me, actually, that I didn't see an overwhelming response of hands shooting up in the air. You know, as a matter of fact, unemployment today, you could ask 100 different people why unemployment happens and probably get close to 100 different answers. It's very well hidden within our economic system as to why unemployment occurs. And there are other reasons, but the one I want to specifically address tonight is predominantly being automated out of your job, or otherwise known as technological unemployment. Now I know that my headline here is it's a fake headline, obviously. I hope that I don't believe that we'll ever see this happen in the future. At least I hope we'll never see something like this happen in the future. But I just wanted to kind of hammer home the point as to where we may be going in our very near future regarding our capability to automate most of the jobs that currently exist in the economy. So, as I said before, I'd like to address the topic of technological unemployment. Now, what is technological unemployment? Well, the basic definition is simply unemployment caused primarily by technological change. Simple enough. It was a phrase that was coined by John Maynard Keynes back in 1930, where he stated, "We're being afflicted with a new disease by which some readers may not yet have heard the name, but of which they will hear a great deal in years to come, namely technological unemployment. This means unemployment due to our discovery of means of economizing the use of labor, outrunning the pace at which we can find new uses of labor." Now, after making this statement, he also went on to say, "But this is only a temporary phase of maladjustment." Now, Keynes, back in his time, believed that humanity would be able to actually reduce the amount of hours that they work in a week. That we wouldn't have to work so hard to produce as much as we need to keep society moving. Therefore, we would free ourselves up to do the things that we love to do versus, labor away at the grindstone. That worked for some people, but I don't think he took into consideration that the unevenness of how this actually happened. We still have that still basic labor for income paradigm that circulated to earlier that we are still currently existing in, and there's some growing pains that are happening regarding getting out of that type of system. So anyway, technological unemployment, at least the notion of technological unemployment, goes way back from before even 1930. The first historical recording of an event happening like it was back at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution in 1811 with a group of people known as the Luddites. Now, who are the Luddites? Well, they're a group of textile workers in Nottingham, England. These folks, mainly perform manual labor, working in the garment mills, and did pretty well for themselves. Well, this was right around the time of the invention of the steam engine, and the automated steam knitting loom was invented around this time. And the owners of these mills decided that they wanted to increase their production. Of course, increased output means more profit, right? So what they decided to do was go and purchase a bunch of these automated steam-powered knitting looms. And their dreams were more than realized when they found out that their output just increased by an order of magnitude. They found out they didn't need so many workers anymore to work these looms. I mean, the automated knitting looms were doing just fine by themselves. So they decided to lay off a whole bunch of the workers, practically most of the factory, as a matter of fact. Well, of course, as you would guess the workers didn't really like this, so they revolted. And one night they broke into the mills and they destroyed the looms. And then later on the next day, they went through the village and circulated flyers that were signed mysteriously with the name King Ludd, thus the name the Luddites. Now, this particular fear of becoming unemployed due to automation, being automated out of your position, from this point on was given, the name Luddite fallacy was given due in light of this event. Now, a lot of economists will like to argue that this is it is in fact what it is, what we consider a fallacy, that the market will always keep up with new jobs to replace the old jobs that become automated. As a matter of fact, even just recently, Alex Tabara was quoted as saying, "If the Luddite fallacy were true, we would all be out of work because productivity has been increasing for 2 centuries." Now, is he right? Well, let's take a look at some data, find out. Now, this is a Fred chart that I actually found online. If you don't know what Fred charts are, they're put out by the Federal Reserve. So it's a pretty unbiased viewpoint of what's going on in the economy. They have no reason to really, if they were going to fudge this chart, they would fudge it the wrong way, but they're not showing any type of data. But anyway, this chart here shows actual production in the economy since about post-World War II versus actual employment. Now, the blue line representing production, the red line represents actual employed individuals within the economy. Now, as you can see, all the way from like 1947 up to about the year 2000, we're seeing productivity slightly leading employment. But employment's kind of regular employment's kind of keeping up with it. I mean, with the exception of a bump of a recession here and there, it's tracking pretty well, all the way up until about the year 2000. Now, real curious things start happening here. We experienced that first recession, and I'm sure a lot of you remember the last 2 recessions that we've been through. But what you're noticing, if you notice here, you're seeing employment, it's losing ground in these recessions and making a slight recovery, kind of producing this sort of sawtooth pattern, but not really, bouncing back to the same level of productivity. We're seeing productivity just chugging along at its, at its usual pace, but there's less and less people employed in the economy producing apparently more and more goods. Now, is this just an anomaly? Is this something that's going to possibly flip in our near future, or is this something that we need to be more concerned about? Now, most humans like to think in a linear progression. I mean, we're evolved as a species to think linearly. We go through life at a linear pace. We drive down the roads at a linear rate of speed. We have a really difficult time thinking in terms of logarithmically or thinking exponentially. Here's a quick thought experiment. Say if I offered you either $1 million up front or $1 on the first of the month, and then every consecutive day after for the rest of that month, I were to give you double what I paid you the day before. What do you think is a better deal, $1 million or the second one, starting with $1 the first of the month?
$1.
You think the dollar?
Take the dollar.
You think that? Well, yeah.
$1 million.
Some people think $1. Anybody think $1 million up front would be a better deal?
Because of interest and investments?
Well, but we're not talking policy. $1 million. That's not what you do with it. Okay, well, the right answer is if I were to give you $1 and then double it each consecutive day for 31 days. In fact, I'm not going to show you the math. If you want to do the math later on, it's really interesting, but you'll have an order of magnitude greater amount of money than $1 million. It's somewhere up in the field, I think. But like I said, you can do the math. But anyway, that's just to give you an idea of, a lot of people, they have a hard time thinking exponentially. I mean, myself included. And look, unless I have a calculator, I can't do that in my head. But so if you ask the average everyday person, that this is our line of progress through time, of human progress, at least for, in the recent past. and you got, where this little stick figure's sitting right there at the end of the line. Most people would consider that, well, all right, progress is just going to keep chugging along at its usual rate of speed. We might see maybe we might see it slope up a little more than than what you're seeing here. Well, what if I told you our near future looked more like this? Now, of course, if you do understand math and you do understand how to calculate things out exponentially, you go, well, that's not an exponential curve. That's ridiculous. But remember, I said this is the recent past. If we were to actually back this chart out a little bit more, it would look more like this. If you notice, progress, it doesn't go at a straight exponential curve. What we see are these little S curves. And each one of these S curves actually represents what's known as a paradigm shift. That's a new type of disruptive technology that comes out and radically changes the future for everybody at a very high rate of speed. I'm only guessing, but I think I didn't come up with this chart. I pulled this off of somewhere else, but I think the first one you could actually, I believe it represents the agricultural revolution, that first hop that you see. The second one is of course the industrial revolution, and the third one is the one that we're about to experience in the very near future, where you see the green S. And the rest is just speculation going on in the future. Of course, that's if we don't blow ourselves up first. So anyway, hopefully that kind of clarifies things a little bit more for what I'm talking about. You may ask yourself, well, who is this guy? What does he know? And I really don't know a lot. I mean, other than what I've researched on my own, and I challenge you to do as much study and research as possible. But there are others in this camp with me that have done their homework, and they're pretty reliable individuals as far as making futuristic predictions. One person that comes to mind that I studied rather closely is the futurist Ray Kurzweil. Now, some of you may have heard of him. He currently is the president of Google Technologies, the Technological Innovation Department of Google or something like that. They made up a title for him, but he has a lot more bigger past than that. As a matter of fact, after my presentation, go ahead and feel free to Google his name. Better yet, open up your phone if you have an Android, say, "Okay, Google," and ask about Ray Kurzweil, or if you have an Apple, of course, open up Siri. Why do I say this? Because Ray Kurzweil played a major role in actually bringing that technology into being. Not to mention a myriad of other inventions that he's come, as well as his past predictions that have come true. But anyway, Mr. Kurzweil calls this type of exponential growth in our productivity. He calls it the law of accelerating returns. And he goes on to explain that the progress of the entire 20th century would have been achieved in only 20 years at the rate of advancement in the year 2000. Basically what that means is that if you were to give people the same knowledge they had in the year 2000 and either time travel them back to 1900 or give the people existing in 1900 the same kind of knowledge and technological know-how that they had in the year 2000, they would have been able by 1920 to bring up their society, at least technologically, to the same level of the year 2000 by the year 1920. Now this is actually going at moving at a faster rate of speed. From the year 2000 to 2014, in fact, we've achieved 1/20th century's worth of progress. Now, if you think about it, go back. I mean, a perfect example is think of cell phones. Okay, if you can think back to 2000, what a cell phone looked like. I have one that's unfortunately I forgot it because I rushed out the door. But I have an old flip phone back in the year 2006, actually halfway through this time period. That it was a nice little flip phone. I played Pac-Man and Tetris. Had a colored screen. I think the big gee-whiz feature on it is that you could do short videos with it. Well, fast forward to 2014, and you got one of these in your pocket. I don't even like to call this a phone anymore. I call it my miniature pocket computer that happens to make phone calls. But just, that's just one, one example of what our level of progress is. And for a lot of people, this can be a really scary thing because, you start thinking about the future and you go, well, gee, where are we going from here? What are we, people have, more and more I've been hearing, kind of a sense of technophobia coming across, like people wanting to smash their computers and go back and live in the woods and chew on tree bark. And I'm saying it doesn't need to be this way, but I mean, I can't blame them, And recently, I don't know if you remember the, just recently the whole argument. It's still going on about raising the minimum wage out there, giving people an actual living wage. This came off. I pulled this off of one of my more conservative Facebook friends' pages. It said $15 an hour. This is your replacement. And this is just one example of how people are living in fear of their technology. This doesn't really sit well with me. I really don't get it. Okay, enjoy your crappy, low-paying job, or we'll replace you with a kiosk. Doesn't really make much sense to me. But anyway, I had to confront him on this, to try to figure out where he's coming from, as far as like, well, what, you don't think that people should get a living wage? Well, his big argument is, well, no, these people should train. They should go and get an education and train themselves to get a better job. And, stop being so lazy cooking burgers. But, I'm all for training. I'm all for educating yourself. But forcing people out of, being able to make a living, not such a great thing. But I countered by asking him, well, what's going to happen when your job comes off? And usually the argument that I always get back is, well, if my job gets replaced by robots, I'll get a job. I'll retrain and get a job fixing the robots. Well, what about when they make robots that fix robots? So, in case you can't read this in the back, it says, adaptation. The bad news is robots can do your job now. The good news is we're hiring robot repair technicians. The worst news is we're working on robot fixing robots, and we do not anticipate any further good news. So, like I said, we're, the future can be a very scary place for some people. Some people embrace it wholeheartedly, but others are, they look at it with a lot of trepidation, especially with the rate of speed that our technology is going. And Hollywood really isn't helping out the situation, but you can't really blame them. I mean, they love making these future shock movies. Hell, I can't wait for the new Terminator to come out myself. Although I don't believe that is really necessarily going to be our future. But it kind of begs the question: what is coming in our future? And what I really believe that you need to do is look for, like I said, when I showed you that curve, where the uptick represents a paradigm shift. Well, I think that a paradigm shift in our technology will actually produce a paradigm shift within our society. We've been able to adapt in the past to technological, unemployment and our technological growth. Why can't this happen in the future? Why, folks will only sit around on their hands so long before they start doing something different. I'm sure some of you have heard of R. Buckminster Fuller, especially if you've been around this group. You've probably heard this quote before. You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. So, what is being built out there? I had to ask myself this question. Is there any evidence of any kind of a quote-unquote paradigm shift happening in society? And look no further than to the millennial generation. Some of you folks might even be in this generation. What happened was, this is the latest generation of people that came into adulthood right smack dab in the middle of our last, the quote-unquote Great Recession of 2008. These people were graduating college with an enormous debt load with their student loans and no jobs to hire them. So you can only sit in your parents' basement and sulk for so long before you get off your ass and do something about it. And so they began to ask themselves, well, what can I do? What do I have? And they started realizing, hey, I've got this social network. You know, they came of age in the age of, you know, first MySpace and then Facebook, and started making friends with people, or, you know, quote unquote friends, but started communicating with people all over the world. And they started realizing, hey, I'm sharing all these ideas with these friends of mine online. What happens if I started sharing things with them? And they started to realize that the more things that they can share with each other, the less things that they need to own, you know, and they need to have. All you really need is access. And they started discovering that having access to something actually was better than ownership, because it kind of freed you up to do more things. I mean, you own a car, you be responsible for the insurance, the repairs, the gas, and, you know, a whole list of stuff. I sound like my mom. Oh, you want to drive? This is what you got to do. But if you start sharing a car, that kind of spreads out the responsibility that you may need to have for its upkeep and its fueling and whatnot. And like I said, these kids didn't start out thinking that, oh, that's what I want to do. It was more of a realization that these people came to, and they started forming businesses that kind of mirrored this type of access versus ownership type of mentality. I'm sure some of you have heard of the phrase the sharing economy. These are business models that were that were brought up. A lot of times you'll hear this phrase paired up with Uber and Lyft, the car sharing companies. It's like turn your car into a taxi cab. But there's several other companies out there that are running on the very same business model. Like for instance, you have an extra room to rent your house, or perhaps a vacation condo or something that stays empty for most of the year. You can post it up on Airbnb. Going out of town for a while, you can park with Flight Car and rent your car out to other people while you're gone. This one's a little bit hard to read, but if you have an extra bicycle or a snowboard or a skateboard or a surfboard collecting dust in your garage, post it up on Spinlister, and you can rent it out for the day for folks that are coming into town that might want to use it. Need a car to rent for the day? Go to Zipcar. Or just for a couple hours, use Cardigan. Now these are all based on some kind of like a monetary-based rental type of model, but there's others out there that are just strictly peer-to-peer sharing networks. Like, say you want to travel and you don't want to pay to stay somewhere, join Couchsurfing. Couchsurfing.com. You can crash on someone's couch in whatever town you go to, as long as you share your couch with whoever's coming to your town. You got a closet full of clothes that you don't use or that you don't wear anymore. Post them up on Dig and Swap and share them with other people. You might find someone that's has the same size as you, and all of a sudden you just doubled your wardrobe without having to go to JCPenney.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Exceptions.
Exceptions to the rules. Believe it or not, Chris, there are people your size as well. Now, I can fill up this whole screen with other businesses, like other business models like this, and I'm not here to sing their praises. And I'm sure all kinds of criticisms can be leveled at them, at these businesses, especially the monetary-based ones, of course. But all I'm putting them, just listing them here as an example that these are very radically different business models compared to the old top to bottom capitalist market system type of business model. They're very, what we want to say, paradigm shifting. But going forward in the future, we're not stopping at even at this. I mean, looking forward, you're going to see the advent. I mean, it's already happening in front of our eyes. The advent of the Internet of Things. Pretty soon, just about every item that you run across out there is going to be connected to the internet. There's a new, I don't know if you're aware of IPv. Some of you might be computer geeks out there. IPv 4.0, which is the current one that we run on, has, I don't know if you can help me out, Matt, a couple billion IP addresses out there. Well, they're getting ready to launch IPv 6.0, which has an order of magnitude greater of available IP addresses in the hundreds of trillions, as a matter of fact, which will And with the, the cost of sensors and whatnot coming cheaper and cheaper, we're going to see more and more things become connected to the internet. Practically everything in the future is going to be hooked up to the internet. This thing known as the Internet of Things. And in doing so, more and more people will become more connected and be able to, not only share ideas, but share things even more and come together and create more things and what's known as the collaborative commons. Just folks coming together with ideas and all over the world and creating these new products at zero to no marginal cost. And if you know anything about economics, profit is made within the margins after you produce something. It's an old adage that you have a cost of producing something, and then whatever you sell it for, that's where you make your profit. But if you produce something that's known as the marginal cost. But if you're starting to produce things at zero marginal cost, imagine everybody having a 3D printer in their house, and you need a new pair of shoes. You don't order them online anymore. You don't go down to the shoe store. You download some code, and then you print them out. I don't know how you make a profit off of that. People sharing their designs for shoes, but that's coming in the very near future. Now I could speak to these ideas, ad nauseum, but I really don't have time. I want to move things along here. But if you're more interested in these, in these particular ideas, I highly recommend Jeremy Rifkin's book, The Zero Marginal Cost Society, the Internet of Things, the Collaborative Commons, and the Eclipse of Capitalism. It's a little hard to read over there, but very good book. So I hope with that all being said, I've alleviated some fears of where we may be going in the future regarding our technology and our advancement in productivity. I'm not a Swami. I can't predict the future, but I really do I like to think more positively. I think bright things are coming down the road. I don't think we're going to see mass starvation worldwide. Going forward into the future, or I hope that I've given you at least some relief, and want to let you know that robots are our friends. Now, I just want to leave you with one final thought regarding this, this whole technological unemployment. I don't know if there was an old phrase. It's called "the world needs ditch diggers too." I don't know if you've ever heard that before. It's something that my mom used to say. Well, who in in at least the societies with access to advanced technologies, who digs ditches anymore? I don't know one person who's has the job of ditch digger anymore. Nowadays we use one of these, and pretty good way to dig a ditch. I mean, you still need an operator sitting in the cab, sweating it out on a hot summer day, getting bounced around in this thing. So what do you say we just automate this? We can put our guys in a nice comfy control room, have them, operate the thing remotely, or better yet, you say we just punch up a little bit of code, uplink this thing up to a GPS satellite system, and let the damn thing dig the ditch by itself. Meanwhile, we can all go enjoy a tall, cool Thank you very much.